Storytime about how I caught my dad watching me while I changed. I think he's trying to gaslight me. I need help. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime, it's sent me on Instagram. I'm 17 years old, about to turn 18. My parents got a divorce when I was 13. My mom caught him cheating on her over several times. And one of the times, he even did it at home with some girl he met at a bar. Because of that, my mom told me not to ever trust him. But the way she would say things made me think that there was something else behind everything. After the divorce, my mom got full custody, thank God. This is when my mom told me that I needed to stay away from him. She told me that if I ever found myself alone with him, that I should just call her and tell her to pick me up. When I was 13, I never thought about it twice. After the divorce, my dad started dating a 19-year-old girl. Mind you, he was 46 at the time. When my mom found out, I remember she called him. She told him he was disgusting for dating someone that was 19. But my dad laughed on the phone and hung up on her. My mom didn't even know that I heard the conversation, but she had it on speaker, so I did. He did have rights to visitation though, so he would come over every Saturday and Sunday to visit me. But my mom never left us alone. But my dad has been giving me such weird vibes lately. When I bring it up to him, he says I'm hallucinating and imagining things. Part 2 is up. Storytime about how I caught my dad watching me change. I think he's trying to gaslight me. I need help. Disclaimers is not my storytime, it's sent me on Instagram. When I turned 15, I started growing more into my body. My boobula started growing in a little more. This is when I noticed that my dad would look at me a lot more when he would come over to visit me. But like I said, my mom never left us alone. This is also around the time that my dad started asking me if I was interested in boys, and that if I ever let a boy touch me before. But it's the way that he said it. It wasn't like in a fatherly way. It was in a gross, nosy way. As soon as he asked me that, my mom told him to stop talking to me like that. And she answered for me. She said, of course she doesn't let boys touch her. What do you expect? My dad laughed and said, okay, fine. Just making sure. I was completely grossed out by my own father. Ew. When I turned 16, my mom started letting me date, and this boy I really liked actually asked me out. I was really excited. I mean, he said he wanted to meet my mom. He came over on a Saturday and my mom made lunch for us. We had a really great time, but then my dad knocks on the door. By the way, he told us that he wasn't going to be able to come, which is why my mom invited my boyfriend in the first place. As soon as my dad comes in, he started acting jealous. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how I caught my dad watching me change. I think he's trying to gaslight me. I need help. Disclaimers and now I storytime was sent me on Instagram. That's when my dad started acting all jealous when he saw my boyfriend. He took my mom into another room and said that I shouldn't have a boyfriend and that I was too young and that he would take advantage of me. But my mom stood her ground. She asked him politely to leave and he did. The following Saturday, my dad comes over to visit again. This time I was in my room changing. My mom told him that I was in my room changing, but she went to the kitchen. Obviously, this is when my dad comes upstairs. The door was slightly open and he could see inside. I was finishing putting on a t-shirt, and when I turn around, there he is looking. I screamed and told him that he scared me, and I told him, why are you watching me change? He said, you're crazy, I wasn't doing that. I said, yes you were, I just saw you. I was so weirded out. After he left, I asked my mom why she never leaves me alone with him. That's when she told me that he was accused of SAing an underage girl. So I told my mom what happened. That's when she said he's never coming back to this house again. Now my dad is gaslighting both me and my mom. He even called me a liar and that I'm making it up. But my mom of course believes me. What should we do? Story time about how my husband's trying to convince me to become an escort. Disclaimers, now my story time is sent me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for almost 6 years. We did get separated for 2 years, so technically we've been together for around 4 years. We had separated during COVID mainly because he doesn't want to have kids and I desperately want to have children. And yes, when we got married, we did talk about having kids and he said he wasn't sure. But after we got married, he basically told me that he did not want to have kids, which is obviously something that I did not sign up for when I married him. I began to resent him a lot because I could have been with somebody else, someone who wanted to have kids. But instead, I spent years with him only to find out that he did not want to have kids. I ended up asking him for a break, and that was basically during COVID. So we were basically broken up for all of 2020. This is where I'm assuming he started getting his ideas. We finally got back together in 2021. I had gone on a couple of dates with some really terrible guys, and I basically thought to myself, well, you know, my husband's not like that, so I guess I should get back with him. As soon as we moved in together, he started talking about escorts. He told me one of his friends uses an escort service, and he thought it might be a good idea to start one. Part 2 is up. Time about how my husband's trying to convince me to become an escort. Disclaimers, now my story time is sent me on Instagram. After he told me he was thinking about starting his own escort agency, I completely lost it. First off, I didn't want my husband to be involved in that, and secondly, I just think it would bring so many problems. He told me that we should just think about it, and I asked him to show me numbers. You know, how much do people make? And he didn't know anything about it. He had done zero research. After that, we didn't speak about it for a few weeks. Not until he asked me what I thought about being an escort. At first, I was confused, like, me being an escort? Or what I thought about escorts being escorts. I told him escorts can do anything they want, as long as they're safe and happy. Then he said, well, we should look into you becoming an escort. I started to laugh and he's like, no, I'm serious. And that's when it hit me. This whole time he was trying to convince me to become an escort? His own wife? What does that say about us? What does that say about the relationship and how he feels about me? So I turned it around and told him that he should become an escort. Then he said, I'm not as good looking as you, so I wouldn't make enough money. That's when he confessed that he had signed me up to 2 different escort websites. And he had conversations with guys pretending to be me. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband's trying to get me to become an escort. That's when he confessed that he had already signed me up to several escort websites and that he had been having conversations with different men pretending to be me. Then he pulls out his phone and shows me all the conversations. Most of the men were trying to make me their sugar babies and were offering me upwards of $5,000 a month just to go on dates with them. The look in my husband's face was of excitement and happiness. I was mortified. I couldn't believe that my husband was even entertaining the idea. After he finishes showing me all of the messages between him and these other men, he tells me that we could be earning about $22,000 a month, and all I'd have to do is just go on dates with these guys. I started to cry and he told me that I was overreacting, and that most women would kill to be in my place. I told him these men would expect much more than just going on dates, and he swears up and down that they won't. Now the thing is, we have had money trouble, so I see where he's coming from, but I just don't know. He's still trying to convince me, and he shows me messages from these guys every single day. Most of these men are in their 50s, and one of these guys was actually really attractive. The money sounds so good, but I don't know what to do. I feel like I would resent my husband eventually. I mean, what if I fall in love with one of them? What should I do? Boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to guys. What should I do? Disclaimers on my story time is sending me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 4 years. 4 years. As you can imagine, his confession was a shock to me. 3 nights ago while we were doing the dirty, he asked me to do some stuff to his bum. And I didn't know what to say. Honestly, I'm not into that, so I said no. After we were done, he asked me why I didn't do it. I told him that it made me feel like it would emasculate him in front of my eyes, and that the thought of him even wanting to do that stuff was a really bad turnoff. Then he said, "Oh, okay." But the look on his face was weird. I asked him why he wanted that. That's when he said to me that he had been thinking about experimenting. Then he asked me what I thought about it. I told him that I really wasn't into that particular thing, but that we could try other stuff if he wanted to. He then changed the conversation and we didn't touch the topic again. But something made me keep thinking about it. So I took his phone and I started going through his search history. And guess what I found? In his search history, it said, "How do I tell my girlfriend I'm attracted to guys? I nearly pooped my pants." I'm not even kidding. I ran to the toilet and pooped. I was sick to my stomach. Part 2 is up. Boyfriend confessed that he's attracted to guys. What should I do? Disclaimers on my story time is sending me on Instagram. After I saw his search history on his phone, I nearly pooped my pants, but luckily I made it to the toilet in time. By the way, he was napping on the couch while I was looking at his phone, so I decided to take it a step further and get on his laptop. I started looking at his search history, and that's when I found it. A link to Reddit. And it was a bunch of people talking about how they came out to their girlfriends as bi or gay. This is when I really started flipping out. Thought maybe he was going to try to tell me that he was gay or something. A little backstory on him and I. Like I said in part 1, we've been together for 4 years. This is a really, really long time. We've talked about marriage and everything. We even went to look at engagement rings at Tiffany's. Families love each other and I hang out with his parents all the time. And I've never, ever gotten the sense that he might be attracted to guys. After I found the search history on his laptop, I woke him up from his nap while holding his laptop. Looks at his laptop and then he looks at me. That's when he said, "There's something I need to tell you." And that's when he says it. I'm attracted to guys. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend confessed that he's attracted to guys. What should I do? Disclaimers on my story time is sending me on Instagram. After his confession, I threw his laptop at him. Then he starts explaining himself. He said that he's only been attracted to guys for a few months and that he had been meaning to tell me, but he wasn't sure if he really was attracted or not. That's when I asked him if he was gay or just bi. He said that he thought he was bi because he was still attracted to me. Then I asked him if he had cheated on me with another guy. He stayed quiet for about 10 seconds and finally said no. The fact that he didn't reply right away meant to me that he was lying, and I don't know what to believe anymore. But of course, he asked me not to tell anybody. But it gets worse. He asked me if we could do a threesome. I said no right away. Then he told me that I was being closed off, and that if I really loved him, that I need to experiment with him, because otherwise he's gonna go and do it on his own. Honestly, to me, this is just a threat. I don't want to do it with somebody else in the room with us, and I don't want him to be bi. When we first got together, he was completely straight. So now you're telling me I have to worry about guys and girls? He keeps on insisting to do it. What should I do?